My name's Tallarico. I've been a video game composer for over 23 years, and as you said, I worked on over 300 video games, which I hold the Guinness World Record for the person who's worked on the most video games in their life. My mother's very proud, and of course my dad says, you know, boy, all those quarters we gave you sure paid off. So there you go. My first video game, 1975, I'm 45 years old. So I was the first generation of people to grow up on video games. And I remember me and my dad going to a friend's house, and they had the Coleco Telstar with that epic wood grain, plastic, real, not really wood grain finish, which reminded me of my mom's station wagon. And, but that was it, and it was basically Pong. But my two greatest loves growing up were video games and music. They really were, you know. There was me playing the guitar and playing my Intellivision at the time. And of course, I never thought about ever being a video game composer, because there was no such thing as a video game composer in the 70s and 80s. You know, a lot of times people would take pictures of themselves with their animals, or, you know, pictures with their friends when they were growing up. I'd always take pictures of myself with my favorite video games. And that's kind of, yeah, where that went. I used to record all my I'd take pictures of my high scores, video games, some photo finishes there. In my spare time, I just doodle around, you know, creating, you know, some of my favorite things on paper. Then, you know, when other kids were just buying Pac-Man stickers and putting them on their lunch boxes, I was actually trying to create levels for Pac-Man and things like that. Then I got into like the data of it all. Then I started recording every single game I play. This is a driving game here. You know, my lap time, the scores, and everything like that. For a baseball game, I created a whole baseball league. I came up with the names of the teams, and I had logos for them. I actually kept every stat of every baseball game I ever played, and the triples and doubles and who got the home runs. Then I started playing games. Then certain games I would actually contact the companies and say, this one game, the Temple of Apshai, I couldn't figure it out. It's like you never finish the game. It was like a role-playing game. You're supposed to finish it, and I could never even find the Temple of Apshai. So I actually wrote the company when I was like, you know, 11 years old, and to their credit, they wrote me back. It says, the object of the game is to complete all the levels. The game never ends. And then it says, the Temple of Apshai temple is in the game Temple of Apshai. What? I don't know what the heck was going on there. It's clearly written by a government employee or something, I don't know. So then I said, well, you know what, I can do this. I can start. So I started making like little maps and diagrams, and here's what the castle would look like, and here's the big gem. You know, and then other stories, I would actually come up with, you know, stories to backstories for the games, and then I got into programming. I said, okay, well, I got to start learning how to program. So I would literally write out every single line of code. This one here is the first page and the last page, over 5,400 lines of basic code to go again. And then, like, when I was in school and stuff, whenever we had a school project, it was always based around video games and things like this. This is a project where we had to create our own business. I created a 2.5-mile long arcade, of which the teacher says, you know, I feel this business is, you know, it needs to come back down to reality. No one has a 2.5-mile room. In my head, there was a 2.5-mile room, so I don't know. So you can see where, you know, video games had such a big, you know, influence on my life growing up. And video games were always something that we played with the family. You know, my mom, my dad, we played it just like we would Scrabble and Monopoly, and sometimes we had video games. You know, so it was always a positive thing for me when I think back on my childhood. Video games is a part of that. And again, it was, you know, we're the first generation to kind of grow up on it, and everyone, you know, after us is also growing up. So, but video games get a really bad rap. They really do. I mean, there has been, you know, every time there's some kind of violence in our country now, the first one to come out, they say, oh, it's video games, just like it was comic books in the 50s and Elvis Presley in the 50s and burn those rock and roll records and all this. Now video games has become the new, the new thing to blame. And I'm going to put an end to I'm going to put an end to it right now. There's so much debate that goes on. So many people have so many different reasons, and there's research, and there's this thing, and there's that thing, and they all do this all crazy research. I'm going to show you one graph, and you will never, ever have to hear the argument ever again. It's this one right here. This is over the last 20 years. The blue line represents all of the violent crime that has happened in the United States from the last 20 years, and the red line is the amount of video games that are sold and that people are playing. So if anything, that's it, the debate's over, game over, right? Game over, because clearly, if nothing else, this says that the more people play video games, the less violence there is, right? Maybe they're taking out their frustrations on the games themselves. Now, that's not to say that video games don't enhance your experience and enhance what's going on. In fact, one of the first video games in the late 70s, we got all the Space Invaders here, the creator, there was 4 notes, dun, 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 done. And what he did is he started it with the human heartbeat. That was the tempo, the cadence was the human heartbeat. And as it got lower and lower and lower, as they started to come down, the tempo would speed up. Dun, 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 dun. And what they found out, they were doing research, is that the human heart, because it was in sync at the beginning, as they were playing the game, their heartbeat would start to go quicker, right? And so games have effects on our emotion and things like that. When you play a driving game and it's so realistic in the graphics, your adrenaline's going, right? But there's a big difference between that adrenaline going and, getting in your real car and running someone over in it, right? I mean, so the correlation is just horrible. And, last time I checked, reality is, violence is a part of human nature, Cain didn't bludgeon Abel with a Game Boy. Genghis Khan didn't have an Xbox Live account. And Hitler didn't play Pokemon, Hitler doesn't deserve a slide in the... well, of course, if I did do a slide with Hitler and Pokemon, it'd probably look something like that. But anyway, 68% of American households play computer games now. 68%. The average person who buys and plays a video game, 35 years old. So video games aren't just for little kids. Again, my generation, we grew up on it. And we regulate ourselves. There's a whole ESRB, is a great rating system. It's all self-regulated. And you see when compared to DVDs or films or CDs, you can see video games right at the top, 87%, which is, really incredible. So we're regulating ourselves better than any other entertainment industry out there. In fact, a lot of people think, all the video games are bad, they're violent. Reality is that only 9% last year of video games were rated M for mature, which means 17 or older can buy it. So it's a responsibility of the parents, too, to make sure, hey, you wouldn't let your kid buy cigarettes when he's 10 years old. You wouldn't let him buy pornography. Why would you let him go buy an M-rated video game? It's the same kind of thing. So 91% are good games. In fact, if you took that little thing and you went, yeah, okay, anyway. So let's talk about then creativity, because video games is art in disguise. And just like it inspired me, zeros and ones, inspired me to do all these amazing things. There's a great website called DeviantArt, and it's where millions of people all over the world just upload their art to share with people, right? And if you put in video games, or you put in a game like Final Fantasy or Halo or Mario or Zelda, you will get millions of art back, And so these are all sorts of, I just want to quickly run through some of these. So these are people who are inspired to create, to draw, to paint, to create things look at these things. I mean, these are not, things that the companies put out. They should. But these are all just people who are inspired to create these amazing drawings in whatever, form, whether it's pencil drawings or paint or, watercolors. I mean, it's really unbelievable. All because they want to do their favorite video games and kind of show their thing. And then there's YouTube, right? YouTube, where people are going on and creating videos, funny videos. They dress up in costumes. They're writing scripts. I mean, this one alone has 53 million views for one video, and it's just a guy, kind of punking Mario, kind of make fun of Mario. Or another one might be. Another one you might know is a woman by the name of Lindsey Stirling. She's a violinist. She was on America's Got Talent. And she creates these videos online of video game music, and she's playing the violin, and she puts these things together. And her YouTube page, 342 million views, right? All video game related stuff. Let me see what else we got. What's next? Taking a little time. Okay, Twitch TV, right? So Twitch TV is the biggest video game website in the world. Tens of millions of people go on, and what it is, it's just like a live portal. So people will just broadcast themselves playing video games and talking about it. You're thinking like, what? 35 million people per month are on this thing, and they usually go 1.5 hours per day watching other people play video games, but also people generating this content, this creative content. Then you have the cosplay community, where people are dressing up. Look at some of these costumes that these people are creating. Does technology and video games inspire creativity? Well, I'd say, look at this. This guy's even making like machines to go along with the thing. One of my favorites there is to get a group of your friends together to do the Tetris cosplay. The game Guitar Hero. When Guitar Hero was at its peak, real guitars were flying off the shelves 30 to 40% more those years. So a plastic guitar was inspiring people to buy, to pick up a real guitar. And for somebody who's played guitar my 40 years, my whole life, and who plays Guitar Hero, I can tell you that Guitar Hero on Expert is actually harder than sometimes playing the actual real song. So there's a great site called Overclocked Remix. This is a website where thousands of people from all over the world take their favorite video game music and they remix it. They do their version of it. So, for example, there might be a heavy metal version of Mario, a jazz version, an orchestra version, a techno-electronica remix, a rock and roll version. Tens of thousands of these uploads. Where's the one for the movie industry? People always like to say, oh, is video game music ever going to be as popular as film music? Yeah, about 10 years ago. People just don't realize it, right? How about this? This is called MagFest. They're in their 12th year. And this is where video game cover bands from around the world all get together. So there's bands out there that'll just cover Mega Man, and they just play Mega Man songs, and they put lyrics to them, and they dress up in the costumes, and there's tons and tons. So then there's Video Games Live. This is the show I created, which is it's all the greatest video game music of all time, played by a full symphony orchestra and choir. I got lasers, lights, synchronized videos, special effects, stage show production, interactive elements with the crowd. So I kind of like to describe it as have all the power and emotion of a symphony orchestra, but combined with the energy and excitement of a rock concert, mixed together with all the cutting edge visuals and technology and art and creativity and fun that video games provide. So all I did is I took all the stuff that I grew up on and combined it with a traditional symphony. It was only about 200 years ago where a bunch of loudmouth Italians like myself sat around a table and said, hey, I got a way to reinvent the orchestra. Why don't we tell a story through the vocals? And I got an idea, let's dress people up in costumes and we'll create these elaborate sets on stage. And opera was born, right? So maybe this is the 21st opera for the 21st century is using technology to create this kind of stuff. Now, I'll tell you a quick story about Video Games Live just to give you an idea. And I tour this all over the world. We do 40, 50 shows a year. I've been doing it for over 11 years now, and we're playing in front of millions of people. And in fact, it's the first time in history where millions of young people are coming out to see a symphony, right? I mean, even in the time of Beethoven and Mozart, it was a bunch of old white people who would go to the symphony, right? And not much has changed in that, but now we're helping to, you know, to kind of to redo that. But I'll tell you a quick story. I was playing somewhere, and I forget where, but a woman in the orchestra comes up. She was the oboe player, and she comes up to me, and she had tears in her eyes. And she says, you know, I've been playing the oboe in the symphony for over 20 years. And my 17-year-old son, I've been trying to get him to see me come and play for about, you know, for the last 10 years, and he's never seen me play. She says, but tonight, and the tears start to stream down her cheeks, she says, tonight's the first time he's seeing me play. I just want to thank you so much for bringing this here. And not only that, he's brought all his friends, and all he's been doing for the last couple of weeks is bragging about how his mom is going to play Halo up on stage tonight, you know? So, and you know, video game music is very different than any other kind of music. I mean, if you think about it, right now, you know, more people are listening to video game music consistently than any other form of media, because, you know, you go to a movie, for example, and you have, you hear the dialogue, right? Because film and television and other forms of media, they're about dialogue and telling a story through words, right? So you might hear the music, but it's mostly being talked over. They call it background music or incidental music in films. But in video games, we have the stage all the time, right? And our music is being pounded in your face over and over again, because it's interactivity and fun and gameplay which drives our medium as well. And so, you know, doing all that, you know, really, and people are playing 30, 40 hours of video games a week sometimes. And I'm not advocating that people shouldn't read books or go outside, make no mistake. There's a balance of everything, right? And yet, you know, but video games can be part of that balance, you know? And so anyway, you know, and technology that we use, so not only do we create something, you know, a piece of music, but it has to be able to branch off in different directions depending on what's going on. Our music's being listened to by, you know, tens of thousands, millions of people a day, and it's in the foreground and repeating over and over again. And we're controlling the people's emotion, which is what Beethoven wanted to do with his music, right? So, I mean, I've always said that if Beethoven were alive today, he'd be a video game composer. He would. He wouldn't be a film composer. He wouldn't want people talking over his music all the time. But anyway, so I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into the video game industry. It's a very, very creative industry. It's an incredible industry that's always looking for fresh ideas and new people. And thank you so much for having me here today and talking about the video game industry. Thanks.